It and Fix It on CBC TV8, YouTube, and of course Facebook. I'm Joanne Haigh. We want to welcome more viewers right here at home and around the world. Now, as you can see today, I'm wearing glasses, so don't change that channel because it's me. During this time at this age, we need to get some extra help. So I needed some, and I'm now wearing my glasses. But I want to share with you what's on my mind before we get into the show and our guests. Yesterday, I visited the NIS building, and from the security guard to the guard on the inside, the cashier, the supervisors, everybody, I want to commend you for excellent service. Now, they always get a little slack on various calling programs, the NIS department, but my treatment, I cannot complain. Even though I shared that with someone yesterday, they said perhaps they recognized you, and this is why. That's not the truth. If any of you actually know me, know that when I actually go out to do my personal business, there's no makeup on me, there's a mask on, there's probably a hat, an old t-shirt, and a pair of jeans. So no one actually recognized me. The treatment was just because I needed some help. No one knew who I was. In the end, they knew, and I had to give my name. So I want to say kudos to them. And when you call the NIS, like I do from time to time, and you recognize you don't get through, I now figured it out. They don't want you to call. They want you to come down so you can experience what I experienced, the great service at the NIS. So I actually now figured out. So don't call, and don't fret if they don't answer. I guarantee you that when you go down there, it will be worth it. Now on to the next thing that's on my mind. Most of you in Barbados and around the world, you would have recognized that Prime Minister Motley had a really busy week during the 9th Summit of the Americas. And she also sat in on Time 100's interview that they had in New York. Also speaking about climate change, as you know, she has been the face of the climate crisis this side of the globe. Now, a lot of people admire Prime Minister Motley, and they totally understand why she has to do all of these meetings. But for some of you who may not quite understand, I would like to break it down. If Prime Minister Motley does not do this, now remember, we are seen as a speckle, a little grain of sand out there. Nobody pays us attention. So what she's trying to do is to take all the grains of sand and build a sand castle. The grains represent the wider Caribbean. So when she builds this sand castle and pull the region together, all the others with their big sand castles, like United States and Europe and Southeast Asia, all of these other continents, countries, etc., they now will start to pay attention. They won't pay attention to this one grain of sand, but they will pay attention if we come together. She pulls the region together in order for us to get the help we need. What is happening now in the economy worldwide? The price of goods are going up. People are having problems with shipping and their products. You would hear people talking about baby formula, for example, and even here at home, raw materials are a problem. Now, guess who's going to get the raw materials first? Obviously, the big countries, people with the big money. So she is out there making sure that we have a voice, not just for Barbadians, but for the Caribbean, so that we can get the attention and the help that we deserve. So I hope that that breaks it down for those of you who may not understand. This is not something I believe that she wants to do in jet set in the middle of a pandemic. God knows that she's at risk of catching COVID, even though she's vaccinated. We know that it does not eliminate that completely. But I wish to commend her today and those who are with her from Barbados, because she's obviously not doing this alone, as a whole team, for going out there and giving of yourself and your service for this country and for the wider Caribbean. And I think she's back. I believe it finishes today, and I believe she's back over the weekend, and she's probably going to be off again. So again, kudos to her. Now let's get to the show today. Today we look at the idea of the circular economy. What is it? Director of Advocacy with the Future Center Trust, Mr. KAMMIE Holder, shed some light on it and how we're doing now is cause for concern. So basically, he wants to explain to us everything about the circular economy, and I will tell you this, I've not heard about it until this show, and that is the gospel truth. I had to do some research on it. But our next guest, everybody knows about AgriFest. So Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, Mr. James Paul, is going to review AgriFest 2022. And he's going to share with us some of the challenges, some of the wins, and what will AgriFest 2023 look like, or what we would like it to look like next year. And of course, our very own roving correspondent, Kimberley SKEETE, shares how she spent the end of measurement month, May. Now, I don't know if some of you may not know what measurement month is or was. It happened in May, and it's been extended to August the 31st. And it really was designed for people to be sensitized about your blood pressure and what that means. And hopefully we can get people screened early to avoid some of the NCDs that having high blood pressure would normally lead to. So Kimberly's going to share her experience, and I'm hoping that you stay tuned, because that in itself is a very serious problem in Barbados. Remember, you can contact us by calling 228-5563 or 228-5562. If you want to send us a WhatsApp message, then kindly send it to 228-5562. If you're watching us on social media, you know what to do. Type in CBC Barbados and you leave your comments there. When we come back, we will have Mr. KAMMIE Holder after the break. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. Our first guest is Mr. KAMMIE Holder. He is the Director of Advocacy, Future Center Trust. Welcome, Mr. KAMMIE Holder.
Good morning, Joanne, and listeners and viewers. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Now, as I said, first time I'm hearing about it, and this show has been designed to face and fix issues, but in order to face issues, we need to be educated about them, then face them, and then fix them. So I would like you to start by telling us what exactly is this circular economy.
All right, okay. Before I start with the circular economy, I want to speak to what is known as the linear economy, which we all embrace, where we extract minerals, we use them, and then we discard them. And the whole idea of the circular economy is to divert what would normally go to landfill. A good example, let me put it in perspective so every person can understand what's happening, is that the clothing industry generates 10% of the world carbon dioxide pollution. Over 10 trillion liters of water is used in the clothing industry yearly, right? 80% of the waste going to landfills around the world is from clothing. But if I have to say to viewers and listeners that those old clothing can be repurposed, given a new life or a second life or a continual life to make new microfibers. So what the circular economy is about is taking what we consider to be waste and giving it a second life. A good example also would be the coconut shells. Coconut shells are now being made into briquettes, as well as coconut wood. So rather than it becoming a nuisance in a landfill, and landfill space is limited, is not given a second life. So the whole idea of the circular economy is to divert the waste and add a little utility or to monetize what we consider to be waste. Because we have been wasting our waste. Another example, Joyanne and viewers, all food waste is not really waste, you know. It can be used for biofuels. It can also be used for manure. But what we are doing is that we are dumping it. So the whole conversation is to encourage and as well as engage listeners and viewers as to how we can all play a part in diverting all waste from landfills. Landfills are expensive. And not only that, they also produce toxic greenhouse gases.
So, okay, so it's not a case of passing on your clothing for somebody else to wear. It is about reusing, reducing, recycling, basically. What we refer to as recycling or repurposing.
And upcycling. But Joanna, I must say to you is, if you listen, just have a project called Donation Nation. And I want to invite you and viewers to visit the Center Trust Donation Nation. And you'll be amazed to see the things that are being diverted from the landfill in terms of even clothing, baby shoes. Think about it. Think about the pants that you bought 4 years ago. Where is it now? So it's not only used to make microfibers, but it's also given a second chance in terms of life. Portobello Market in the UK is a market where you can have what people call gitimers, or you can purchase secondhand shoes, secondhand coats, dresses, pants. So there's the opportunity to give the clothing a second life, be it new microfibers. I may have a suit that is costly, but was made from reused, repurposed clothing. So that is what we can do if we have a circular economy.
So take us through, how does it actually work without taking it? Who collects this? Where do we send it for this to start
Unfortunately,
working?
Jordan, unfortunately, there is no one who actually is involved at the Center Trust in terms of clothing. The clothing has to be of good condition because we don't want people wearing tattered and torn clothing in the Center Trust, right? They're sorted and they're put in. And I must say is that we've been getting some very decent and costly, even heirlooms from persons, pieces of furniture. So you can contact the Center Trust. We'll make arrangements, we'll deliver, and we'll sort it and be placed on display to be sold. And the unique thing about Donation Nation, viewers and listeners, is that you can then opt for your favorite charity to be given a donation. I repeat, you can also opt for your favorite charity to be given a donation when that item is sold. So we're not only diverting waste, but we also living up to our true role as a good corporate citizen.
All right, so I'm going to go through this again for those who may not fully understand. I have clothing. Say I have 60 pairs of jeans that I want to. I don't need them anymore, and they're in good condition. You're saying I can send them to the trust. The trust in turn will sell those jeans to people who may want to do what with those jeans. That's where I would like to.
Wear them, Joanne. Joanne, I have a nice jacket that I bought, and you do not know that it was second hand. So, you know,
KAMMIE, you hit something, your audio gone.
Well, okay, we're going to get KAMMIE back. KAMMIE, can we hear you? Again, do a voice check. KAMMIE, are you still there with us? I can see you. Oh, okay. That happens when you're decline to call KAMMIE, and that would help. So we're going to get him back shortly. Okay, good. Is he back with us now? KAMMIE, so But what I'm saying is it like a, sorry, say that again?
So the person on display, and someone and the person put the water. And I look at these things of decent stuff coming in, here rooms and so forth, nice furniture, finance, that sort of stuff is really something that they go in, they bring something out too.
So is this equivalent to some sort of like a flea market type of thing where you come and get used items? Because I thought
Yes.
I thought I got the impression
But more
like
classier than a flea market.
more classy than a
Because we
flea
don't
market.
take everything.
So the recycling aspect of things, this is just more or less saying, look, I have some clothing, it's still in good condition, we're going to send it to the trust, they set up and they sell it and they take the money from the sales, then to do what with the money? Because that's
So-
where it really...
So the uniqueness about this here, this situation is that the donation nation, you can then opt for what charity you want those funds once item is sold donated to, a portion of those funds.
So you see, when you started off by telling me how much water is used to manufacture clothing, and we talk about landfills, I'm still looking at, even if I sell those clothing, I still got to discard them at some point. So this is why I was asking about the recycling, repurposing of the actual fabric, but that's not what this is about.
No, this is not about that. This is about waste diversion for the time being. But from the email I would have saw, the text message I would send you all, you will see that there are companies around the world who now are actually making new microfibers from clothing. So rather than going to landfill, is now being repurposed in the new clothing.
But at some point, though, Cammie, which I know this is not what the discussion is about, this is just a sidebar, it will end up in the landfill.
It will, and that is the sad thing about it. But we are hoping that with time, as time passes, we will see more persons getting involved in such industries where these things can be repurposed and not just sent to landfill. There is no reason, Joanne, where we should even be sending concrete waste to landfill. Concrete waste can also be repurposed.
Okay, so let's talk about the used tires, etc. Is that included in all of these things? Or because we talk about clothing, what are some of the other items?
For instance, used tires. We in 2022, as a country, we're still burying used tires. Tire crumb can be used in road construction. The steel can be extruded and used to be recycled for new steel. You can also make the furniture from those used tires. And you can also use biodiesel, or they can be used to power a furnace. But we are burying tires. At some point in time, we then have the problem of spontaneous combustion, where we now have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars out in fires. And if my memory serves me right, we've had no less than five fires due to tires in the last couple of years.
Okay, so we talk about the coconut shells. I'm seeing here human waste. Where are we talking about here? All of the things can be diverted from the landfills. And the Future Trust also encourages people, obviously, to do what with these other items outside of clothing. We talk about vegetables and old fruit, etc. As I see in here, these things can be monetized. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we see it as waste, but as far as we're concerned, we don't see it as waste. We see it as a commodity. Matter of fact, Joanne, there is also a waste index, just like how they have a stock index, where waste is traded internationally. So we're saying to people, let's have a shift in our mentality. Don't say it as waste, say it as a commodity that can be monetized in some form or fashion. What this will call for, it will also call for a complete revamping of our educational system where we don't see things as challenges, we see things as opportunities.
Okay. Well, Cammie, when we come back, we do have to take a quick break soon, so I don't want to ask you the next question and then have to interrupt you. But we certainly want to talk about the FTC as it relates to the circular economy. And we also have some questions. I have one or two questions here that people just sent to my phone. I'll send it to the producer so that you can possibly answer those questions when we come back. More with KAMMIE Holder after the break. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. We're speaking with Mr. KAMMIE Holder, Director of Advocacy Future Center Trust. I said I had one or two questions, but it really was a person saying that they're grateful for the clarification on what your topic is, because they thought that everything can go to the trust. But what we are discussing is the circular economy in general, and things that we can give a longer shelf life to in business. And that's basically what we are discussing. So I didn't send that one to the producer. The following quote I have here comes from an article called The Conversation. It says, extending the life of products and materials prevents the overgeneration of waste and recovers the full value of products. What would you say to that particular statement?
A great initiative. And one of the things is that we are hoping to lobby the government where we can make that also mandatory. Now, the government has attempted to fill that void by having something called the Returnable Containers Act, where that extended product right is also borne by the importer. And a good example is, as I said, when you go and you buy a drink, you pay 25 cents. The responsibility is to the retailer. But now what we have in Barbados is something that I am very concerned of, is that you have retailers in Barbados who will charge you 25 cents as a deposit. And on you seeking to return that bottle, they're saying, oh, it's built into the cost, which is dishonest. Because the whole purpose of the Returnable Containers Act, as it relates to extended product responsibility, is to remove those bottles from the environment.
We have one more. Go ahead.
Sorry, and another issue that we are faced with is that the European Union, along with France, they're now saying to manufacturers, there must be an extended product warranty. There must be a guarantee then, let's say, of your refrigerator. Because in the past, you buy a refrigerator, it only lasted maybe 2 months, or let's say 2 years. So the fellows are saying now to the manufacturers, there must be a guarantee, let's say, of 5 years for your refrigerator, 5 years for your stove. And if it breaks down under that time period, it has to be replaced free of cost. And that is something that CARICOM as a whole, because I think because of Barbados' size is too small to negotiate with manufacturers, that those white goods imported into the Caribbean must be given such a guarantee.
Well, this other person is just asking again, perhaps, Joanne, it would be a good idea for Mr. Holder to just tell us again about the Future Centers Trust mission so that we have a better idea how we incorporate the circular economy and the Future Center Trust. So just give us another background idea of the Future Center Trust, KAMMIE.
The Future Center Trust was formed over 30 years ago by the late Dr. Colin Hudson, the engineer. And we're tasked with education, advocacy, as well as institutional strengthening, because we have a program called the Green certification, where we help persons or organizations become more green and their footprint. We are also involved in such things like Trees for the Future, where you can buy a tree, have it planted, provided with the the GPS coordinates of that tree as a tribute to a lost one or for some celebratory occasion. We are also involved with the annual cleanup Barbados because we figure that a clean mind leads to a clean body. One of our most recent projects would be the revamping of or the reopening of the old train line. I guess most persons may be aware of that, where we're seeking to set up a bicycle trail. And you probably, if you pass in the Hall Sorters area, you'll see on the left going towards east, just opposite the Valley Plantation, you'll see a shelter there. And that's where the bike trail is really starting from. And we're hoping that we will continue that bike trail along the old trail line down to Bath and St. John, where persons can have that avenue as a means of exercise, free away from traffic. So we have advocacy, we have education, we have the core recycling network, which is community recycling, where we encourage persons to sort their waste, and one of the recyclers will come by your community and pick up that waste maybe any month. So we do a lot of stuff, and persons can also contact us at 625-2020.
Well, we know that this has been ongoing for many, many years, and I believe that people are now getting on board. Of course, this blends very well into the whole climate crisis. The fact that we have natural resources that are not limitless. At some point, we're going to run out of all of these things that we're not, if we don't repurpose them. What is because I'm going to get to the FCT's solutions, etc. afterwards, but the business leaders, are they embracing the circular economy?
What I must say is that our approach to most companies, it has been very, we've been getting good reception as we seek to help companies to repurpose, because most companies, something as simple as printing on one side, also getting printers which are more environmentally friendly and that sort of stuff. Also trapping rainwater, using the rainwater also for irrigation purposes as opposed to let it run back in the road. So I can say without any contradiction that we've been seeing greater engagement under our green program, which we reach out to companies to take on more green practices. We've seen also in terms of build out, where companies are building and using more natural light, thus reducing their demand on air conditioning. So we are seeing some behavioral change, but we can also see more.
So people like yourself, do you meet with the Chamber of Commerce, members of the private sector to sort of educate? What kind of programs do you have in place, public education programs?
Well, let me say that within recent times we've not had the public through some institutional strengthening, but in the past we have engaged with the Chamber of Commerce and other NGOs as well as the government. But we now have a new board in place, and going forward, you're going to see us raising our visibility in terms of what we do, in terms of engagement with the public. Because it's about education, and we think that once we can educate more persons, we think that an informed person is a more noble as well as a more loyal citizen.
We have a quick WhatsApp question here we're going to put on the screen for you, KAMMIE. See if you can respond to. What sort of employment opportunities are you speaking about, Mr. Holder?
As it relates to, you mean the circular economy?
Circular economy, yes.
Entrepreneurship. Good example, you have those youngsters, and this comes to mind very readily. Youngsters who decided to make a herbicide and fungicide from the sargassum seaweed. You have persons also using crushed glass as a decorative material. And those are the sort of things that people can engage on. You also have funds which are available internationally from the JEF fund and other funds from the Japanese, where you can probably put a proposal to them as it relates to the same recycling of or repurposing of clothes to make new like microfibers. There is a lot of grant funding out there for persons who are entrepreneurial thinking and who want to monetize opportunities they see within the waste stream. There is money in waste, and we need to stop seeing waste as
But you'd have to have some buyers, and in Barbados, I think I asked you that a little earlier, about selling this waste. Because when we think about waste, in order to, even with renewable energy, to create renewable energy, we're thinking about a bulk waste. And do we produce enough to export and then to be paid for these things?
My response to that, Joyanne, would be, and viewers, is that we cannot think local. We have to think global. There is nothing that says a person from Barbados cannot coordinate with some business partner within the OECS to launch a program as it relates to recycling. This is not an ad for bees recycling, but bees have done work within Union Island, St. Lucia, as it relates to exporting plastic bottles off island. So I'm saying there are opportunities, and person cannot be myopic in their thinking as entrepreneurs. They have to think, be it regional or even global.
But is it happening? As you said, we need to push more. We need to find ways and create, because even if, say, the guys on the block have an idea, somebody has to fund it. Obviously, whether it be government or the private sector. And most cases, a lot of people are not taken seriously. Again, maybe even because they may not know, they have a good business idea, but they don't know how to put it together in order to get funding.
And eventually you've said that, because I've served on a financial board in the past, and going through business plans, I realized that there's some inherent issues where I am saying that business writing or business plan writing should be part of the Barbadian psyche or part of Barbadian landscape. I think in 2022, there are too many persons who have ideas, do not know how to put it down on paper to convince a lender of the viability of a project. Joyanne, you know, I have seen some business plans where persons had these plans put to institutions and they were given the funds. I have seen smart partnerships starting where they started locally and they're now within the OECS, because nothing is ever bought until it is sold. And what I will say is that it's going to cause for a major mindset in our thinking. And well, I've been an entrepreneur for the last 36 years. And what I will say is that most people do not understand that being entrepreneurial, it calls for major sacrifice and long hours. And sometimes do not see the rewards immediately. And the key to it sometimes is to work with smart partners or create smart partnerships so that you can materialize or you can see some sort of return as it relates to having the best possible brains for your ideas. So we cannot look alone to Barbados as it relates to the circular economy. Barbados is too small.
Understood. We do have another WhatsApp here for you, and another quick question coming from me. How do you change the mindset of people who think once they're inside and outside clean, they can, wait a minute, that's it. Once they're inside and outside clean, they can dump their stuff in gullies and empty land. How do you change the mindsets of people who basically dump their stuff in gullies and empty land, open lots?
Joyanne and viewers, again, I am of the firm belief that persons do what they think is important to them. And we got this insular thinking, it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem. And unless disincentives are created, I think the problem will remain with us for a very long time. Now, before I came on this morning, I was in a chat called Illegal Dumpers Barbados. And the person was lamenting the lack of the lack of clarity of purpose as it relates to how do we treat this issue, Joyanne. There is great indifference and I know some people see me as sometimes probably too cavalier when it comes to sentiments, right? But I think that there is great indifference towards creating disincentives for persons to stop littering. Now, the person was saying to me that they went to the police, and the police in turn passed it on to the Ministry of Health. And the Ministry of Health is saying that the police should get involved. And now these are volunteers that went to bust gullies recently and clean up. These are people that have been cleaning up for years. So I don't know if probably perhaps Joanne may have to do brain transplants.
What?
I'm not
Sorry,
being funny.
what type of transplant? Brain?
Brain transplant.
Oh, okay. So you're saying, can you come with in closing, some sort of a solution, heavier fines? I mean, the legislation needs a little bit more teeth. What does it need?
What I've been saying, I again will say this here. No person should be on the roads of Barbados transporting any waste as a freighter unless they have a certificate saying that they're authorized from some landfill. And that person should only be paid as a freighter when they can prove that it was deposited at some registered landfill. And I don't know why it's so hard for us to implement such a program in Barbados.
Well, in closing, because we do have to wrap up, one of the things that I learned from this too, and I wonder about the people who cut grass, and what do they do with the grass after they cut a lawn, and you see them scrape it up and put it in bags, and somebody plastic bag, and
Madness.
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 Solution?
And Canada, in closing, as you said, there's something called grass cycling. You cannot put out grass as municipal waste. It has to be recycled. It's called grass cycling. And we need to stop that in Barbados. Stop put out grass for the sanitation.
Perhaps the SSA probably needs to put more out on that, because sometimes when you're moving a trash bag, you don't know exactly what it is, what's in the bag, especially with these new garbage bins. You may stuff all of the garbage bags with grass in it, and when they're flipping it, they may not be aware of what's in those bags, because they're not really supposed to be picked up by the SSA.
And you know what, Joanne and listeners, is that we import millions of dollars of manure and compost that's made up to said grass.
Well, 2 more comments there. Jail, they want jail, put up cameras, take license plates, and arrest one person. And in ending, they said one man's garbage is another man's treasure. Want to end on that note, KAMMIE. Thank you so much. We have a lot of work to do with fixing this problem. Again, we're tying it into the climate crisis, because the more that we hurt our environment, we're killing life. We're killing our lives, we're killing plant life, we're killing animals. And in years and years to come, it will be too late to reverse this. And we probably can't even reverse it. We need to slow it down. So I want to thank you so much for that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you, KAMMIE. When we come back after the break, we are going to speak with Mr. James Paul, and we're going to review AgroFest 2022. We'll be back. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. As we all know that AgroFest wrapped up about a week and a half ago. Time's flying so fast. And it was the first AgroFest since the start of the pandemic, I believe. The last AgroFest was in 2019. And today we have the man in front of AgroFest. When we hear AgroFest, we think of James Paul. We don't think of anybody else. Welcome, James. I want to introduce you to as the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society. James, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm fine. You okay?
I am okay too. I'm okay. Tell us about
That's good.
AgriFest. I heard it was a hit. Unfortunately, I did not get there, but
Mhm.
raving reviews from the public. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the public for the reviews because we never satisfied what we have. Because those who plan events, we know what's happening behind the scenes in terms of getting things right. So sometimes, knowing what's happened, you wish you could do it a little better. It was a very trying AgriFest. So because, going into AgriFest, there was quite a bit of COVID hesitancy. People were not sure whether or not they should be part of it or not part of it. Even, for instance, some of our normal exhibitors, they were also expressing that. Some of them were not there, unfortunately. But I understand the decision because of what happened during COVID, they were not able to prepare themselves properly to be able to participate. And of course, the question of the staff availability. As a matter of fact, one exhibitor who was ready to come on, they had to sort of withdraw at the last minute because of the fact that a lot of their staff actually, key persons on the staff, actually took sick, so they were not able to participate. So it is these kind of things where you know this in the background, and when people actually do turn out, it was kind of heartwarming. The thing is too that we relied a lot on messaging, and I think that is one of the things that again helped us to get back to our place because AgriFest is not just an event to keep on seeing the person. It is not one where basically, we're just trying to be like anything else. It is really an event in which we are trying to highlight the contribution that the agricultural sector is making to the Barbadian economy. We also are trying to highlight the linkages that are necessary for agriculture to make the type of linkages that it needs to make. So we sort of wanted to concentrate on that messaging. We also wanted to highlight the individuals who make AgriFest. I know you talked about me, but truthfully, it is possible because of the fact we receive tremendous cooperation from a whole set of people, exhibitors, sponsors, government, other key people in the private sector. We've had some sponsors that have been with us from inception. We have like Clinical Feeds. I mean, they have believed in it despite all of the bad things that you hear coming from people about, different companies. They have been there to pick and thin, and it is not possible. It really is not possible unless we have companies like them, wanting to make a solid contribution in terms of helping people to understand what agriculture is doing in the Barbadian economy.
Well, I can say that some Barbadians after AgriFest, they were actually looking for the COVID numbers to increase because it was actually the biggest event we've had, I believe, with people, singers, etc., entertainment, we've had since 2019. And I must add that the numbers are actually coming down somewhat. So I don't think that it was, I know they're concerns because a lot of people are still concerned about outdoor mask wearing, but it's still a good thing to hear that this is 2 weeks later because it was 2 weekends ago. And by now
Yes.
we would have seen that. But I can't let you go. We talk about AgriFest and we gotta talk food. We gotta talk about I have to, and I want to go through it by animal. I want to say that because pigs, and then their chickens, and then we're talking about belly sheep. How are our farmers doing with the rise in prices since the last time we spoke? It's more money now than the last time we spoke.
Look, to be honest with you, our farmers are not doing well. They are struggling. I'll be very frank about that because I don't think anyone could expect in this environment our farmers not to struggle. They are struggling, and as a matter of fact, I just had a conversation with one of the field officers, and he was saying, it's really tough with some of them in that, people are thinking, whether or not I should still be in the business. So it's very difficult, and we have got to start to look at ways of, coming up with strategies to help our farmers, and that is why AgriFest in itself is so important. We forget that, when farmer goes out there and produces the product, he needs a market for it. That is why it is so important for us to give assurance to our local Barbadian farmers that, look, we have your back. Over the years, too many farmers have really been involved in agriculture, and without knowing whether or not the country, the community have their back. And the fact that sometimes there are some people in this country who do not see farming activities as important, and that it is a business, and farming is a business, accounts for that. We tend to trivialize it and marginalize it in that it is, yes, any young people are going to farming, but that people see farming as something, some of them, and we will say use the word some of them, as something that those who can't find anything better to do go and do. But listen, it is not that. The most successful people in farming are good business people. They have to be able to do good business. They have to be able to be scientists in a sense too, because unless you understand science today, I'm sorry, don't come. And this thing about pushing any and everybody into agriculture, the next best thing that get in agriculture, you'll be successful. You are only fooling people. Farming is for intelligent people who can make good business decisions and who have certain skills that they can benefit from. It is not for fools. So that is why sometimes, because you're pushing people who are not suited for agriculture, why you are seeing some of the mistakes that you are seeing being made. But in addition to that, they need the support. And I will not fool you about that. They need the support. It is difficult at this point in time. We farmers are experiencing some of the largest prices in input that you will see for any time.
Did
costs are actually going up in Barbados.
Did Barbadians support them at AgriFest as far as sales are concerned? Did you get any reports from them, feedback to say that they did pretty well, the ones that actually participated?
Well, let me say that besides the fact that we did not have sufficient farmers, we didn't have the problem that we are facing, and I will say for most of the exhibitors who attended AgriFest, we have clear indication that they did well. Despite whatever year, they did well, because there was probably one or two persons, because in AgriFest, you always have some person complaining, I was in the wrong position. Where you had me, I was not doing very well. And I think that as we go into future AgriFest, we got to start how to correct that, in terms of people feeling that, I am in the wrong position, or certain places, saying, how do we get better circulation and movement on the part of the crowd, people at AgriFest? So that is something that's come to every event. But I would say that, yes, Barbadians came out and they were looking for more. As I said before, we did not have enough of farmers there. Seabirth Nursery is one of our biggest nurseries, in fact, the biggest nursery that we have around here. They were on AgriFest, and people were actually asking for them.
Could you repeat Could you repeat that again? I didn't hear when you said who wasn't there.
Seedburst Nurseries.
Okay, yes, wasn't there.
I'm sure my friend Ian Julian would not mind me mentioning his name, because he does a fantastic job himself, and his daughter Malika. That's a family business. I'm talking about people, young people don't get involved in agriculture, and we don't think, listen, you have to put a lot of life to these things, because people just start these things because they try to diminish and they try to make it look bad. But that's a family-owned business, and they are doing well. His friend, his daughter, she's doing a fantastic job of just the birth nursery. They weren't there this time, because they just did not have the time because of what happened during COVID to prepare. Gales Hatchery is another one. They weren't there this time, and they were missed, So all I'm saying is that, the people who were there, I would say 99% of did very well in terms of, because of the participation of the Barbadian population.
So what about the pig farmers, chicken? Were they well represented?
I don't believe that. Pig farmers themselves, I don't believe, were well represented, because, again, they are going through some very difficult times. I must say, we were represented, because we had some mothers and young piglets, plus some other animals on show. But I don't think, though, that as a lot of I think 2 or 3 of the pens were vacant in terms of them. The sheep farmers, they came out, and that's one of the fantastic things. They came out on this occasion, because before, and I think Mr. Parris, Ronald Parris, the former president of the Barbados Sheep Farmers, and and of course Carol Thompson, again a former president of the Barbados Sheep Farmers, they did a wonderful job in terms of getting those pens ready, and making sure those farmers turned out. So that was good. We had Mr. the winner, okay, Mr. Branch. Ian Branch, I know you know him in a different capacity, those of you who are familiar with the police force, but you know, he did an excellent job in terms, and you know, that's a generational thing because he has, again, his whole family is involved. Even in, and so they had, I would say, pretty good sheep representation. In terms of the cattle. The cattle was, I think, again, they had some challenges because according to the normal cycle of things, most farmers, especially cattle farmers, prepare for Agrofest in February. I think that having it in May also got some of them off balance. So the representation was not what we would have wanted it to be then. But we are hoping, of course, that you know they come back. But we had some beautiful animals to show among the cattle. I mean, people, especially when they come to Agrofest, love to see those big, massive bulls. You know, and they were on show. The one disappointing thing among the sheep farmers, I think that there was an exhibit of Boer goats. They weren't able to come this year because they actually what we are trying to do now is we are trying to you know, revive the meat industry as such. Okay, and again, you find that we're trying to introduce these new breeds that we have wanted to get people to see, but they were not able to come into quarantine on time. But these are things that we hopefully will correct as we go on in future years.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more with Mr. James Paul. Welcome back, everybody. We're speaking with Mr. James Paul, Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, and we are talking Agrofest. Now, one of the things that stood out Friday, and we had officials from Guyana, the president of Guyana, and that link. Tell us a little bit about that and the connection, the Guyanese connection with Barbados as it relates to agriculture.
Well, first of all, we have always, from the point of view of the region, the BS has always interacted with farmers in the region through the Caribbean Farmers Network. And we have persons from Guyana who are actually members. And even when we Agrofest in previous years, we've always had people coming from Guyana to sort of showcase their wares. So it is not the first time that we've had Guyana representation. It is though the first time that we have had a president of Guyana addressing, you know, at the opening ceremony of Agrofest, and also to, you know, it is also the first time we've had two heads of state, by the way, who have come. But it's the first time we've had such a large contingent. Of course, I want to give thanks to the special envoy, Mr. Alfie Wiggins, for that, in terms of getting more persons interested. But we have had them before, and as a matter of fact, some persons, Guyanese, who were on there before, they actually came back as part of that special team. And you know, we've also had persons from Jamaica coming, but we also don't forget we also have persons from Suriname on this occasion who also attended the exhibition. In that regard, you know, it is something that, of course, we try to encourage because we like to work with our partners in the region. And in terms of the impact that it would have for the ordinary Guyanese farmer, we view it in the same way because, you know, I think that we have this view that somehow the problems that we have in Barbados is not shared and by the ordinary Guyanese farmer, or the challenges for that matter that we have in the region and in Barbados is not shared by them. It is actually a very common thing in the region where the problems that we have in Barbados are replicated by many farmers, in situations across the region. So, for instance, the same way that we complain about imports, Guyanese farmers have to suffer from that too. Um, and they have to, make sure, of course, that they get a chance to be able to supply their people. The same way, for instance, and the same challenges in relation to certain products. So we can empathize, and that is why, in a sense, the opportunity for persons only from Ghana to participate. I think that we welcome it, and of course, you have to fill out, because remember at the beginning of the interview, I did indicate that there was some COVID hesitancy. So naturally, there would have been some spaces that would have been blank at AgriFest on this occasion. And if it wasn't for the participation of the Guyanese, they really helped us to make AgriFest what it is. So we need to thank them, of course, and of course the Surinamese neighbors in terms of coming and helping us, to give a quality presentation.
How does it benefit us? How will it benefit the
In
region and Barbados?
In terms of benefiting the region and Barbados, I think first of all the relationships helps in terms of understanding what we're going through, and I think that giving them some exposure, because there are some commodities that we do not produce that they do produce, that they have an opportunity to get into their market. Similarly, I think that persons who are coming here, those Guyanese who are coming here, have a chance to see what we are doing, and we might be able, for instance, there might be some commodities that we are doing out here that they are not doing, that we'll be able to get down there. So that from that mixture, it helps. I don't want though to get carried away to think though that every Guyanese product that is produced there can come up here, because certainly we also want to protect our market. And even in the region, historically what we have done is that we have worked together. Where there are gaps in production, we try to help each other out, but we understand that we don't at the same time want to operate in such a way that we compromise our market at home. So that is something. So we can work together, and we understand better each other that way, and we know what are the gaps, and we will know what products, for instance, that say we can send to Ghana if we need to send to Ghana, and they vice versa understand what products that we will need. Because, for instance, I made a call recently when it came to the issue of watermelons. I keep on saying we can produce every single watermelon that we need in this country. We don't need to import sweet potatoes. So I hope they clearly understand that, and vice versa, we will understand that, for instance, that they can do this. And because at the end of the day, what we want to do is encourage increased production in each country, right, and getting more business for the farmers in each country at the same time.
Well, I'm glad that you said it, because some people probably may not have understood the benefits, because people were then thinking that we're helping out Guyana. What about the Barbadian farmers? And people do have to understand that building relationships, especially when you're so small, in order for us to be better, we need to bring in our neighbors, our brothers and sisters, to become one big family. Hence the reason for CARICOM. But CARICOM, to me, in my opinion, over the years, has been more of a lip service type of thing as opposed to an action thing. And truth be told, and I'm not sounding political here, but this is a fact. You're seeing a lot more happening. Could it be as a result of the pandemic and people just come out and make sure, or having the pandemic, you recognize, look, I can't stand alone, to bounce back from this, and to get people involved, especially Guyana, Suriname, another country that we're looking to for assistance, or see how best we can help each other. But on another note now, sorry, go ahead if you wanted to respond.
I just want to say though that look, and one of the things that our farmers are looking up for and listening for too. I'm just hoping that the kind of frenzy that you're seeing now and interest that you're seeing in agriculture does not dissipate when the crisis moves. Because if you could think back, every crisis that the world has gone through, Barbados starts to talk about agriculture and how important that is, and we need to put more resources in agriculture. When that crisis is passed, agriculture somehow becomes now forgotten. You don't need to spend money on it and stuff like that. But this is where we need to stop. We need to stop doing it, because I don't want us just to talk about agriculture now because we're going through the pandemic, or because of the fact there's a Ukraine war. We need to build agriculture as into part of our normal operating systems in terms of the economy, and that the resources that are going to be provided now, whatever resources are likely to be provided, are going to be ongoing. That would assist in making sure that we do have an active and vigorous agricultural sector. Don't just let's talk about agriculture for the reason because of the fact that there's a Ukraine crisis, or because of the fact that we're going through a pandemic. Let us talk about it from the point of view: how do we ensure that on an ongoing basis and in the future that agriculture becomes part and a prominent feature of our national economic landscape and discussion, and that the resources are going to be provided on an ongoing basis for it. Not what happened in the past, where when we felt that it was not important, that a lot of the resources that were required to support our agricultural sector, to provide that support, were taken away. Those resources need to be given back to the sector. And in itself, that would help us to provide better food security, so that when these shocks happen in the future, that we will be better able to withstand them.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to hear about what exactly are those resources, because we all speak in general. I want you to walk me through a farmer that somebody has given land to and just left him high and dry. We'll talk about that after the break. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. Now we're trying our best to see how we can fix the agricultural sector here. And James Paul, the face of agriculture, in my opinion, is he's here on the show. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society. So before the break, I mentioned that I want to hear about some of these resources. So let's take, for example, Farmer Brown gets a piece of land. Government says, look, I can help you out. I give you a piece of land. What happens after that? Where are these problems coming from after that?
Some of these problems come from, and by the way, some of the farmers own making, but some of them come in different areas. For instance, you have a situation where plowing. I believe that we have to be very clear what the farmer is entitled to. If they're going to get plumbing services, provide them those plumbing services, because it could be expensive, and maybe one of the ways, especially depending on the amount of capital that is available to the farmer. Okay, he doesn't have enough to really do the plumbing properly. So I think in that regard, we need to ensure that if plumbing services are up to standard and they are readily available when the farmer needs them. That's a fruit and vegetable farm, for instance. The other thing, of course, too, is this, that in terms of certain basic inputs, for instance, seeds, one of the things that I noticed that we have a heavy reliance on overseas suppliers for certain types of seeds. We need to start to look at having our own seed bank in Barbados. So that, for instance, yes, I mean, and I think the private sector has to be critically involved in this too, because one of the things is that we need to find a way that when we do things, when government does things, that the private sector recognizing is a private sector activity too, that we need to involve our private sector. But there are many seed varieties that, for instance, that we depend too heavily on overseas, that we don't have a seed bank. Previously, there was a seed bank at the Ministry of Agriculture, but that has not that's gone the way. I think I understood there are whispers that they're trying to develop another one. But that is something I think that we need to give great emphasis to, having a seed bank that will have different varieties of crops that we actually grow and plant that farmers actually do need. Okay, things such as that. Also, for instance, the necessity for trials. There are many, for instance, our onion crop that is here. Many of the trials that the Ministry of Agriculture used to do, they don't do anymore. Those trials are not being done because I think the department that actually used to do it, I don't know if it exists anymore with any Ministry of Agriculture. And even the private sector used to rely on those trials as a means of trying to find out what are the most suitable variety of seeds that we need. So areas such as these are very specific things, very important, that we need and ensure that, for instance, that we can do the things that we need. I just want to tell you more to livestock now. You know, things that the farmers have been asking for. There are some items of agricultural equipment which is extremely expensive. So, for instance, can you imagine, for instance, bringing in a piece of equipment that is worth, say, $1 million, and you have to expend cash, close to $1 in order to do it? Now, you could also recognize the VAT component of that piece of equipment that you're actually bringing in. Now, even right now, because of the fact that in agriculture and business, cash flow matters. So if you have to wait sometimes 5 years in order to get back that VAT refund, can you imagine the type of pressures that are being put on your business because of the fact you have a significant amount of VAT outstanding that you cannot collect under 5 years? And that's a serious issue. So even again, in that regard, those type of things we need to fix, because one of the things that we have asked for in the agriculture sector is that what we call the upfront payment of incentives. So in other words, instead of having to receive payment on the back end, why not on the front end? Because of the fact that sometimes you already starve for cash, and then to put out the cash and then take so long to get it back, that also presents itself as another issue that you have to deal with. Even, for instance, one of the things, for instance, too, that we have talked about, and I know that the government has looked at, is the question of, we can do exports in the industry, but you know what? We don't have an accredited lab here within Barbados, okay, to actually do exports properly. In other words, we have our chip poultry industry, but because of the fact that we don't have a lab, we cannot export. We cannot send it to our neighbors, because usually when you have to have the lab close to your source of production. And I think sometimes in the same way that we find money to do things that we think are critically important for other business sectors, whether or not be tourism industry or whatever, why can't we find the money to expend to put in for a lab that is critically needed, that might even help to facilitate us in terms of exports? And that way, of course, we create other marketing opportunities for your agricultural sector. I don't know if
James, before you say,
yes,
so you're saying that we need a lab for,
yes.
is it the vegetable farmers we're talking about only, or the meat farmers? Who?
No, I'm talking about livestock. I'm talking about generally livestock. We need an accredited lab that could do the type of tests that will certify, for instance, that we are free of certain diseases or whatever on our farms in order to be able to export to certain countries.
Telling me that some of these bigger establishments, which names I wouldn't call, they don't export? They just make their money from Barbados?
Correct.
So we can import chicken wings, for example, and pork, but we can't export it because we have no lab?
To certain countries. We can't export it.
To no countries at all, or certain countries? Certain
countries we can't export because, for instance, even for instance, we're talking about, say, the EU. We signed years ago, a long time ago, we signed an EPA agreement. And do you know that, in a sense, and one of the things about the EPA agreement, it was supposed to increase our capacity to export. but you know what? You know, I mean, I look at some of these agreements, sometimes you have to laugh because they spend so much time on form and appearance. But really, the things that will make a difference to the productive sectors, they give very little resources to. So, for instance, where we would have gone through looking at, first of all, the legislation that is required to facilitate. We don't spend much money on that. We spend much money on a lot of on government infrastructure, government doing this and that, and these studies that God knows where they go when they finish. But on the things that the productive sectors actually need, and that's one of the things that we need to start to tackle. A lot of these agencies that are around us, that are here, they spend a lot of money on these things, but when it comes to what matters for the productive sector, the actual private sector actors, they don't spend any money on it. And they will give the grant to government.
Let me just bring this back for clarification.
Yes.
We're talking about the livestock, the actual animal. I'm talking about the meat itself. The meat that I buy in the
Correct.
supermarket. You're trying to tell me that after you kill the pig, sheep, turkey, whatever, you can export to certain countries? And if you do you
But
know
not,
who those?
but not others.
Do you know some of those
Because,
countries that we can
because
export to?
I mean, for instance, I believe in some US, I think the US, and I would say Caribbean neighbors, depending on who they are, because it's we still have to meet certain standards. But the point
Okay.
I'm saying, if they asked us to do certain tests to satisfy them that say we are free of diseases, okay, basically we will not be able to export because we can't do the test. And
Right.
even on a regular basis here, there are certain issues and problems because from time to time, you hear our farmers complain about depending on because we forget that the livestock gets impacted by the seasons and different things. And sometimes to do some of those tests, we don't have an adequate enough lab to do the tests. And that's some of the issues that you face. So it is these type of issues that we face that I think that we need to pay attention to. That we need to ensure that we support, give our agricultural sector the amount of resources that are required in order to help them to do what they're doing better.
You want to echo your sentiments as it relates to farmers, and if there is more that can be done, I believe it should be done. And I believe that we do have a habit, I compare this to caregivers. We talk about the elderly and to care about them, and then we don't treat the caregivers with respect because I don't think they're paid enough to look after the old people, for people who have contributed to this society. And that's a plug for the people at the National Assistance Board. And then equally for farmers, we need to eat. And you're right, every time there's a crisis, everybody goes back to, I'm speaking in general because it happens with every government. They talk agriculture, they say how important it is, and then something happens and we kind of not get up the situation, but some other crisis occurs. That's on the back burner, and then it affects us again to eat, and then we want to talk about it again. So I'm hoping now that we're seeing bigger talks, and I mean, we do have to have conversation first because that's how it starts, but perhaps some action. But there's some other problems in the sector that I want to hear your opinion on. Is that we know the cost of living for sure has gone up. Feeds, are we still, are farmers still being subsidized, or that's done?
But that is another issue I really want to bring. Look, the reality is that nature is not perfect. It is not perfect. And we live by a cycle of nature that says if nature does certain things will happen. Look, the feed costs have gone up, largely because of the fact, again, Ukraine is there. And a lot of the international distribution channels for grain has been disrupted. And it will impact on grains. We have nothing in place that in the event of something like that, that we could kick in something in which, for instance, recognizing here, there's a temporary aberration in the market that causes something to happen. What can we do? It should be automatic, to my mind, for us to say, look, you know what? We need to subsidize the cost of feed, of grain. Because largely, it is not that Pinnacle Feeds who is sold, or if there was two feed companies, they can't influence the price of grain. They just cannot. because in the context of the international purchase arrangements, they are small buyers. They can't influence it. So if we are serious about now having to maintain our industry, you'll want to say, you know what, we want to ease the pressure on the farmers. So what we're going to do, we're going to try to make sure that we keep the price of grains within a certain range, so that the pressure or the feed company will not be so much that would say have to increase the price of feed. And then, of course, that has to go on to our farmers, because it is difficult. A lot of these price increases are causing our farmers a lot of difficulty, right? So they now have to increase the price. And of course, what happens? It goes on to the final consumer. It is not that they're being bad managers, or they don't know what they do and anything like that. It is just, this is the reality that they're faced with, right? And the only way we can sort of, get to hedge that is to say, you know what, okay, let me help you through this particular period, because we recognize it's a temporary aberration, and when things get back to normal, we could take off the subsidy, right? That's just the facts of life.
We also have another issue with monkeys, and recently I saw a video with some parrots. My good friend Dr. Kurt Douglas will be joining us in a few weeks to talk about the underground trade that we see, this wildlife trade, where people are importing some of these animals, and sometimes because they can't feed them, or they just let them go. Because I know that we don't see parrots in Barbados like that. And the video showed the parrots eating up all of the corn from the farmer. So where are we with the monkey crisis? Are we still monkeying around?
Let me just say, I hope we are not still monkeying around, because I know we are taking our own steps to try to ensure that we reduce that monkey population, right? But I am saying, look, I know my friends, the animal rights activists, whoever they are, but look, people have to eat. And we cannot have a situation where we have monkeys in this country, which are pests, going there, destroying crops, destroying livelihoods, human livelihoods, okay? Destroying the ability of families to eat. And we are saying, let's hands off. And if you feed them more, you get more of them, and they become a bigger problem. So let's talk about they should get their own separate amount of food. Come, give me a break. That defies common sense. You don't feed a snake to get bigger to eat you, okay? The point I'm making generally is this, that we have to reduce the numbers. And any conservative way in which we can reduce them, we have to reduce those numbers of monkeys that are around. And I want to make it very plain too, and some of the same countries that they talk about that we get tourists from, that we will get complaints from, England has a cull season where they control foxes and all these kind of other wild animals when they get too much out of hand. So please don't come tell me that the persons from which we get our tourists from, and a lot of them are not coming a lot now anyhow, okay, that they will get vexed and don't come to Barbados. That's being hypocritical and defying the facts. I think that we need to control the numbers. I think that we need to ensure. I am one that has called before for raising the bounty on those pests. So
I was about to say, because honestly, if you tell a man right now on the block that you could give him $50 for every monkey caught, I'm not saying to kill, caught, because I remember back in the days, we used to get a little box with a stick and a string, and a little feed, and we used to try to catch a bird. I mean, we used to release them afterwards, of course. But they're wire cages, they're ways and means of doing it. If you could find the money, and guys on the block that need jobs, because trust me, I would be in St. Philip in my backyard, and I see monkeys running all on the side of my wall, and they're everywhere. Now, if you could catch at least 2 monkeys a week, or 3, and you paid me $50, well, I tell you, well, CBC, I would not sit in this chair, and I will go monkey hunting, for sure. But, I mean, things like that, because guys like to do stuff like that. Guys like to set little traps and stuff, but make it appealing, and perhaps it's something that we can look at. Perhaps a farmer, the private people can engage a few guys and say, look, we have this problem, come on, and if you catch some of them, I'll give you $50, and I don't know what you do with them, if you send them to the wildlife reserve, or what's the plan, if there's a lab that still takes them, because remember they used to buy the tails, not necessarily the whole monkey.
Right.
I remember the lab, yeah. So there are ways, to me there are ways, but I only corner the farmers because truthfully, I tried a little thing I have there, I can't seem to get off the ground somehow or the other. It can be frustrating. So I do understand, and I wish to lend my voice with every farmer in this country that whatever can be done, we need to do it. And I know we can't get everything done, and we're not perfect, but more can be done. I see the start with Agrofest, with the Guyanese president, and I think that was fantastic. I think that we need to start relationships, but I want to see some action. But we do have to go to break. We're going to come back and we're going to give you some final words when we come back. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. We're speaking with Mr. James Paul, Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, known as BAS. He is speaking very plain and straight, and this is what we love because that's the only way we can fix problems for farmers. But before I give you final words, the cost of living again, and as it relates to the supermarkets, is there anything we could do? Not the government. I'm talking about the owners, the supermarket people, because here's my logic, James, and it may sound far-fetched. There's a number of things that I think that we could do with the importation of food at the port. I also think that people can see, things that they don't necessarily need, but I am a firm believer that if a supermarket makes money from me and you, and he's making a profit of $10 million, and the cost of living has gone up with the imports and the freighting, etc., that perhaps for 1 year he can actually absorb some of the cost. Where he's not making the $10 million profit, he can make $6 million because he's absorbing 4. Reason being, I'd like to repeat this, I made the supermarket rich, you made the supermarket rich, the producer made the supermarket rich. Don't you think that with business and a level of humanity combined can work with the other things I just mentioned, maybe with the taxes and adjustments, but we have to, it's not a one approach. We have to do it together. Dear God, somebody tell me if they're telling me I'm wrong. They're telling me the world don't work like that. And perhaps that's the problem. The world needs to work like that.
Well, the world, let's appreciate that nature doesn't like a vacuum.
Say that again?
Can you imagine? Nature does not like a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine a pipe with water flowing through it constantly? The only way the pipe remains wholesome is if water flows through it constantly, correct? The day that water stops flowing through the pipe, what will happen is that it will begin to sag and it might even break. The reason I'm telling you that is that I know it might seem, and being in business and talking to business people, you understand what it is. And I understand the pains, but it is not as simple as people think to just make adjustments. Because remember, the business reflects your community. And I know sometimes it's hard for people to believe that businesses go through the same hardship as anybody else. Sometimes it makes profits and it makes losses. And it is and a business is dependent on making a return. That's how it finances its capital. It's capital purchases because you don't buy new machinery,
James,
right? Yes, please.
James, I'm saying you're right. That's how I operate a small business. I
Right.
won't operate a profit, but
Precisely.
there's something called greed, and even though people say that's relative, In my opinion, the way the world is right now has a lot, the downfall has a lot to do with greed, and we are no longer thinking of each other, we're thinking of about ourselves. Now, you are still making a profit. The question, my analogy was, you're making a profit, you're making a lot. Can you not absorb some? And you're still rich.
You know, but I can tell you this: we're talking to each other, not at each other, with each other. And one of the points is, I would hate to think that business people in this country are so Shylock in approach to the point where they will not want where they can, okay, do what is necessary to help this community. Because even the same thing that we speak in farming. Look, if there are no farmers, there's no need for the input suppliers. In other words, they need us. They need consumers in as much as we need them. Okay, so, and I think really that maybe we need to recognize that and see. And I think that genuinely that people will make adjustments. In fact, they will have to if they want the business to survive, if they want the community to survive at the same time. They have to make adjustments. And the behaviors will differ depending on the character of the individuals that are managing those businesses at the same time. But I do agree with you. I mean, businesses in this time will have to make some form of adjustments in order to recognize the community is under stress. They're part of the community, and certainly they don't want the community to collapse, because they, as much as anybody, is affected by crime. Whatever happens, they're affected by it. Okay, and they do have to make adjustments. But I think that sometimes we have to appreciate that you have to give things time. And I think that there are business people like that. Maybe it's because of the Christian outlook at me, in terms of saying that people do have good in all of us. There's some good, and I really think that in most cases that businesses must recognize that, look, I can't survive if the community around me at the same time is under stress.
For us to sensitize the community a bit more. But the thing is that because it's food, and I'm not talking about clothes and furniture and things that you can do without. I'm just speaking about the supermarkets. And I have some good friends, you probably listening to me right now, that own a supermarket. And I probably will have this discussion with them. But I strongly feel that, I'm not saying do it forever, I'm saying that we are in a really tough spot now. And when we talk about the chambers talking and the unions are talking and everybody's talking, I'm not seeing it making a difference in my bill at the supermarket. I see more money. So because it's food, people know that you need food. And because they know you need it, trust me, I mean, I went to school long, but I know how that psychology would work. You need me more than I need you, so I can put up my price to suit me. I'm saying the Christian in you, and I'm not a Christian, I believe in God. So the God inside of me tells me, Kadir, we all said that we were in this together. The word in this together to me becomes a lip service now, because I realize that we really ain't all in this together. Because if you were all in this together, government, private sector, even persons and the consumer, somebody has to help pull this together so that we can live. People are hurting. I know there are people who are calling my phone and they don't have our next guest, Kimberley Skeete, will tell you through her show the kind of calls that they get off the show because people are too embarrassed to call. They call us afterwards and they let us know, not that they can have clothing or something, that they don't have food. So I feel very passionate about that, James, that with the fact that you are in charge, and I know that you've done a lot of good, but you don't own a supermarket. I just feel that we need to reach out to the humane side of this and help.
I agree. And I'm sure, though, look, don't think, we have sometimes we think properly on views and feelings and sentiments and whatever. Let's not think that. Let us not think that. Let us think that, as you said, that your views are as diverse in our community as anything else, and that there are people who genuinely will want to effect change, who will want to contribute in that way, and who are prepared to do it. And that's what keeps human society moving, and that's what keeps human civilization moving. So let's hope that that feeling is not just among you and me, but it's around everybody else. It is just that it is suppressed in some cases, but let's hope that that comes to the fore as much as possible during this time.
They said, Joy, get real. That's the system. And my response is, we are the system. It's us.
Yes, correct.
And God did not come down and tell anybody to introduce VAT. He did not come down and say, let us increase oil prices. He did not say, let's have a shortage on baby formula. These are all the actions of human beings. Some world leaders that are probably should not be world leaders. Some wars that we know that should not have happened. And people who do things and make decisions over the lives of other people. And it then hurts other people while they sit in their mansions and have access to food and people shopping for their food while other people suffer. And I am very much against that. And I think as a people, we need to say something about it, and we need to continue until it changes. I'm not talking about enabling people and saying, look, have free this and don't work. Of course not. I'm referring to the genuine cases in this country and the wider Caribbean and the world. Too much greed. Too much greed has contributed to this and lack of humanity on the part of some world leaders. James, I can leave the final words at you because we do have like a minute or two.
Well, yes, I want to say that, first of all, we are a very difficult state in our nation. That is true. The challenges are, we've gone through these things before. It's a little worse than the bumps that we had before, but it also means too that we have to look into ourselves and help each other, and in a very genuine way. And this is not time for political grandstanding or anything like that. It is really that we have to be serious about the things that we think we are, we want to do. And I really think that we can demonstrate it by meeting people where they are. And meeting people where they are does not mean having our own view as to how people's lives are. You have to listen to people and see what is really hurting them and give them what they need, not what you think they need. And that is something we have come to appreciate and understand within the agricultural sector. There are too many people out there who seem to think they know a whole lot about agriculture, and they have their own impressions about what is happening. But when you check, they don't talk to the farmers. These are more armchair people who really, they try agriculture a little bit, but you know what? They might try, but they ain't really about it. They don't understand what it is about. Talk to people in agriculture, and they do understand, because they are people who are very heavily committed to it. And they will want to stay in agriculture to make sure that they help to feed the nation, and also to, of course, to make a living for themselves. And that's what they need, the greatest support. And that, again, I repeat, let us not use the opportunity that's presented here to just make it seem as if, we're on top of it, but we're just talking the talk. But when it comes to doing stuff, we ain't doing it, right? Because farmers are tired of people using politicians using this opportunity as a means of saying, yeah, I got it. But at the end of the day, many crises have gone. They, push them off the bus and say, well, we had you on for the bus, but it's time for you to get off here. We have some other things to do. We have to build the agriculture sector in a serious way as a viable part of our economy in the long term.
And a good note to end on. I want to thank you so much, James, for joining us, and don't be a stranger. Thank you.
No, of course not. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. When we come back, bye-bye. When we come back, yours truly, Kimberley Skeete, one of our own, joins us to talk about her experience getting her blood pressure and all kind of checkups. Kimberley will be joining us after the break. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. That was James Paul that we were speaking with just before the break, the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society. And I just want to say that discussion, all the more reason why Prime Minister Motley continues to do what she's doing across the world to get the message to the people, to make sure that the small island states, Barbados included, that we're not left out and that we don't suffer, because we do need them, and we're hoping that they don't forget us over here. And I want to commend again the Prime Minister for continuing those discussions in an effort to help all Barbadians and the Caribbean. Welcome, Kimberley Skeete, our last guest. We saved the best for last. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well, Joy. In fact, the doctor, Dr. Brathwaite, confirmed that I'm doing well. But it's really not about the test that I had. You know, we had May Measurement Month, and knowing our numbers was so important that I decided to get on board, because I didn't know my numbers in a little while. So what I did is I went down to the Maria Holder Diabetes Center, and they're able to test from your blood sugar levels, your blood pressure. They also do what they would consider a 3-month screening. It has a particular name, HY1C. I think that is the correct title that you use to it. It will check over the last 3 months for your blood sugar levels. And I think it's important because HA1C, right? HA1C. Now, I think that in itself is very important. A lot of these things we take for granted, and if we can actually follow and do the checkups once a year, just once a year, it'll help prevent some of the chronic non-communicable diseases that many of us are faced with later on down the line. And as you know, some of us are being faced with it earlier.
I was going to say once a year when you're your age. When you're my age, it happens a little bit more regular. It should happen a bit more regular.
You should. Yes, we should. We should.
So you did all of your checks. You did the blood pressure. You went for a full medical. I mean, you.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And measurement month prompted you.
Pardon me?
The measurement month prompted you to do these things.
Yes, I thought it was the responsible thing to do.
Okay, because we had Dr. George Connell, because we want to obviously assist moving forward. Up to this morning, I can call his name. He's a pharmacist off Neil Best, who has said he will donate one. I've called Total Care. We're getting a set of blood pressure machines pulled together. Yeah, we're gonna do that to give away on the show in a few weeks. There you go. And as I was telling them, I needed one with a longer strap, and so it could fit around my arms, because they come in various sizes. But measurement month is so important to get your medicals done. I've said before, I have not gotten to the point, and I will admit this, I practice what I preach. Now, but I also tell my children, do as I say and not as I do. I don't go to the doctor as often as I should, and I repeat this because I have so many people relying on me right now that I worry that if I hear something that I need to fix, funny enough, this is why I need to face, that I need to fix, I have to take myself out of the equation. And I want to wish my mom good morning. She's 80, and you know, she's trying her best. My little daughter Sky and Sky's granddad Eddie. We've got different people, and I'm in the center here thinking, please Lord, I know I got to go to the doctor, but I ain't feeling sick. Don't take me out of the equation yet. Let me do a little bit more, you know. And there are people who are like that. They go and they go and they go and push, but they never check themselves.
And I think that's what made me so self-conscious about it. There I was with Dr. Brathwaite. Dr. Diane Brathwaite is a gem, by the way. I sat there with her, and we had the interview on Let's Talk About It. And I started quietly thinking, when's the last time you went to the doctor? Okay, I had a checkup because my daughter was sick. So it reminded me that I needed to do this more often. And I took the conscience call and I went.
But here's the
But you're right.
thing.
Hmm.
When I was younger, probably your age, I don't know if I'm old enough to be your mother. Probably. I know your dad, your
Probably
mom probably
not.
just smiling now and going, mm-hmm. But no, probably not. But let's just say, but when I was younger, I would cough. Just to cough, I run into a doctor. Every
Hmm.
last thing I remember in 2012, I had to have a small surgery, and they went through me with
Yes.
a fine tooth comb. There was absolutely
Hmm.
nothing wrong. We talking about MRI, X-rays for your lungs, lung function tests, blood work, urine, you name it. And you would think that because you had a clean bill of health, 10 years ago, that you would go like, you know what, let me keep this up. No, no, no. Joanne has some horrible habits that she probably will not share publicly, but I need to work on. I really do. So because I have those bad habits, I know what I do to my body. And I worry that I find something out and I got to stop doing what I'm doing as mommy, as
Yeah.
as a worker, as a daughter to my mom, things like that. So I promise the
It's a
doctors, every
reality.
doctor,
Hmm.
I promise every doctor on the show I can work on it, and I am, and I really don't want to wait until that's the logic behind it, huh? Joy,
Hmm.
do not wait until it is too late when you can do something about it. But they may not understand is he doing something about it that I worry about how long it can take. It could take me out for 3, 4 months. I remember, and I could mention here because it was publicized, when the Honorable Member, Deputy Prime Minister Sandra Bradshaw announced that she was going to get tested, for cancer. She's battling that. And she's a warrior because she actually went through that and was still managing her ministry sometimes from her hospital bed. Um, and I want to say if she's listening, I'm not you, Santia, honorable member. I commend her because I looked at it and I said, wow, could I do that? Could you, Kimberly? I mean, if you had to
I think
be,
I think I think it's when you take yourself out of the equation and treat it as you would treat any other situation. My philosophy is that the only way from down is up. So if I've been knocked down, I gotta find a way to get up. And I am a fighter by nature. I am a pusher by nature. So it is in my makeup. Don't get me wrong. I have my moments where I feel knocked down. I have my moments where you feel as if everything is stacked against you. Every day is not sunshine. I would be lying. But I think that the fact that you have others to live for, the fact that you have others depending on you, you find yourself more desirous to push.
I agree. I agree. I trust me. Everybody around me, I get to the doctor. I mean, my daughter, the fastest thing I do. My mom, God bless urgent care. All of that. I do the full 9 yards. It don't get better than even me putting everybody together. But it's just something that I kind of have to work on for myself. I don't even think it's so much. It's not fear of even leaving this place. It's just fear of not being able to do what I do for them and what will happen to them, type of thing. So, but again, I do encourage Barbadians, and you have to, because we have a lot of NCDs, more than we can manage, and a lot because of COVID, and a lot of people did not go to the doctor because we were all on the inside. I also have heard.
In,
Go ahead.
in addition to that, Joy, one of the things that Dr. Brathwaite pointed out is that once you've passed 40, one of the things you really need to focus on is getting that kidney screening done as well on a yearly basis. A lot of the problems that doctors are finding their patients presenting with are things that could be avoided or at least minimalized if they have, your kidney screens, you have all of those other things done, those other screenings, your blood sugar, all of those things on an annual basis. And once you've reached the cusp of 40, just as they tell you with your breast examination and your pap smear and all of those things, these are the things that you have to add to that list. It might feel a little cumbersome, and there are also other areas outside of just the hospitals that provide these things at free to nominal cost.
Well, let's talk about the kidney failure, for example. Only 2 days ago, I was on a webinar with Dr. Cave and some other doctors. The discussion was renal failure and the fact that we have not put that on the front burner. We talk about heart and stroke and about screening. And this is very close to me because of the family situation with one member passing away from renal failure and another who is now fighting that battle of kidney failure. The screening, we need to educate, we need to tell people, because I was trying to figure out how do you go from functioning kidneys to finding out that you're at 6% and you need dialysis. What happened all in between there? You know, it's almost very similar to what I understand to high blood pressure. It could be silent. Hence the reason why you need to go. Kimberly, you're making me all feeling now that when I leave here, I'll go now to go and get my checkup done. No, not guilty. Inspired is more the word.
Good.
Right,
Good.
inspired. Let's
I'm
share
glad I did that.
You know, but the other doctors listening and said, but you know, Joanne, tell me this. I said, no, I told the doctors I'm feeling a little bit different, but I ain't get there yet. But with you, I'm feeling a little inspired. But let's get these two WhatsApps in quickly. Kimberly, first WhatsApp. How long did Kimberly have to wait on her numbers, and was she okay? She looks okay.
Yes, I came up okay. I'm happy to report even my blood pressure is low. It's 112/77. My cholesterol levels came out surprisingly very good. Because I cheat from time to time.
Gotta stop eating cheese, girl, and all of those dairy things.
Now you're making me feel guilty because I can't resist the loaded fries.
So they want to know if you eat properly. Do you exercise?
I eat everything, but in moderation. So if, for example, I just said I like loaded fries, I'm not gonna have loaded fries this week, next week, and the next week. I might have loaded fries a day this week, but Monday to Friday, I usually have a green salad and some sort of meat at the side. I don't care what kind of meat it is, but I would have a green salad. I tend to more so eat home food. I'm a homebody. So I go home and I have soup with dumplings and you know, it's got in chicken or beef depending on the meat of the day. It could have in lamb. I tend to eat, and I don't like my plate to be absent of green. I like some color. So I like salads. I like to have those things at the side of the plate. That helps to fill a lot.
What about snacks? What do you do?
I'm not a snacker, but I wouldn't refuse a pretzel or a slice of cake.
I wouldn't refuse a plantain chip with the red bell peppers, which, by the way, I told the nutritionist there that I have about 5 packs of those a day. He was like, what? I said, please, 5 packs doesn't mean 5 big packs. Half of that is air in the pack. So, but the exercise aspect of things, you know, you didn't. That was part of the question. If you exercise,
I walk the dog. I used to go to the gym. I was very active in the gym up until COVID. I've been hesitant at going back so soon. I haven't gotten into that yet, but I walk the dog pretty often.
Do you have a blood pressure machine at home? Did you invest in one?
Admittedly, I don't, but here's the thing. My children's father, he does the blood pressure checks because he's the one that would have a more of a concern for elevated blood pressure, if anything. And I, on the other hand, I tend to run pretty much like the 112/77, you know, maybe a 116. I barely get to 120. And I think that really is genetic.
Look at you. I barely get to one. Listen, I will tell you this. Let me throw in a little brag here. In 2018, I went to a private place. So don't say that I don't run. The pressure, I went to somebody's house and the nurse said, come on, take your pressure, Joy. It was like 170 something over 100 and something or whatever. And I was like, what? So she's taking it again. So I gone out to this place to get my pressure taken. And I'm there but an hour. He's like eventually writing a prescription for me for high blood pressure, which I said, thanks, but no thanks. And now I'm not trying to be my own doctor. I'm saying that a lot was going on that day and then probably that week. Let me go home and boil a little Christophine, truthfully, a little parsley, and drink a lot of water and relax. I went and I bought a blood pressure machine. And lo and behold, for 2 weeks, I started seeing it coming down, and then consistent. Only 3 days ago, I checked my blood pressure. So if you want to compare blood pressures, we compare, girlfriend. Because it wasn't as bad, it was good. It was actually 110 over 78. Good. And then I checked again, it was 123. But you know it fluctuates a little bit. But 123 over 78 was not bad. And I thought, okay. So I do take my blood pressure regular. When I say regular, at least every week. If I'm feeling off, because you kind of feel something, you know, you have that day you feel like, am I feeling dizzy or am I feeling hungry? Girl, I run for the pressure thing. So much so that I leave black and blues on my arms because I go on it over and over that day just to be sure I'm fine. So I said that to mention again about the blood pressure machines. Now, when you're telling me now that you pressure good, I can't send you one of them pressure machines. I was going to send one over to the radio station, but I'll send you one though to give one of your callers.
Sounds good.
As we continue to promote, they're going to drop them here at CBC, the individuals who want to give, and I'll put your name on one because again, that's one thing somebody said, Joanne, stop self-medicating or diagnosing. No, I don't self-medicate. I never said I swallow anything. I meant for the herbal stuff, which I meant the vegetables, but I guess that's what they meant. But I made a good judgment call. I'm not, because to me, if you're having high blood pressure, I think you have to have a series of numbers over a period of time and not that one-off. That person then says, so
is it possible it could have been white coat syndrome?
But that's the thing. Dr. Connell was here. Hence the reason why we want to encourage people to take their blood pressure. And this is why we are so happy that you're here with us as you ended Measurement Month with making sure that you're okay. They want to get away from taking blood pressure in the office because they realize that they don't get the right readings. So part of this exercise that we here on Face It and Fix It will do and join with you is to give some machines away to encourage people, you know, that don't have but may not be well. Take your pressure, document it, and go to the doctor with your notes so that the doctor can see the trend.
And
so, yes. So, do you self-medicate and diagnose yourself sometimes? Or simple things, or you just rush to the doctor?
No, I'm not a rush to the doctor type of person. I haven't got the time. But if something is very out of the ordinary for me, I make sure I get to the doctor.
Of course. But there's some people that I know, Bush seems to be the thing. And I know a lot of your callers will probably share their Bush experiences with you and what to use and what not to use.
Herbs, all sorts of things, but they swear by it, you know.
But this is certainly no way of advocating, and I tell people, please, you know, this is just me making a decision about me. This certainly is not encouraging you to, if you are not well, please go to the doctor. That was just me sharing my experience. At no given time must you then decide, because you have high blood pressure, that you should go and boil a piece of parsley and Christophine. I would strongly advise. But no, they have to take advice from the doctor. I do. If I go, I definitely do. Some of your callers, because you have a lot of shows on, when you have Dr. Henry Fraser, I believe. And Professor, my apologies. And you talk a lot of medical things. Do you find that people in Barbados are proactive or reactive? I would say reactive, because I don't feel that most Barbadians rush to the doctor. They're like me. What do you
You
get?
know, that old saying, we don't kill this fatten. A lot of times we live by that. Even yours truly. But we have to, this is the time now that we have to move away from it. We have to move away from it and do the follow-ups. See your doctor, get your checkups, have a blood pressure monitoring machine. I'm going to have to put that on my list.
All right. Man, we can send you one, man. Don't dig anything. We will send you one. We got two for you that we can leave. But on that note, though, I want you to wrap up. And as I speak, I'm hoping that the pharmacies, please note that I will be calling you because we need some blood pressure machines donated. And so far, we're not doing too bad. The pharmacies are pulling out and saying, listen, Joy, I can give you one, I can give you two. And so keep the blood pressure machines coming in. We certainly will be giving them away for good use. Kimberly, final words at you.
I just want to encourage everyone that it's not only about the exercise, it's not only about the diet, it's not only about the testing, but it's also about attitude, positive feelings. And a lot is going on around us that sometimes can affect the positive feelings that we can have, but let's work on that inwardly. I know some might say it's a little, a bit of a hubbub, but think about it. That little bit of peace that comes on the inside, it starts to work everything else on the outside. Add some good diet and some good exercise and visit your doctor, and we go.
All right, Kimberly. And I'd like to add or end my thing by saying have a good now. I don't say have a good day because I'm trying to get people to live in the moment. Live now. Do it now. So go and have yourself a good now.
Thanks, Joy.
You're welcome. We do have something to share with you, I believe a video that producers is telling me that we will. It's a WhatsApp, my apologies. I thought it was a video from WhatsApp. So we'll put the WhatsApp on the screen. Right now, where are we supposed to put the grass if you're saying don't put in the bags for the SSA after we cut it? Well, that question, I believe, can be answered by Mr. Carl Padmore, the Public Relations Officer. We will get that answer and respond. But to the best of my knowledge, we have also always been told, if you're cutting trees, you're cutting grass, don't put it in bags, don't put it for the SSA to carry out because they're not going to pick it up if that is the case. So you can don't rake the grass off the lawn. You actually can delay the grass from growing back too fast. You can leave it. Most people do. If you're raking it, you have a farmer, he has a cow, a sheep, send it to him or tell people to come and collect it. There's different ways and means for you to, call a farmer and get rid of your grass. That is the easiest way of doing it. But don't put it in the garbage then for the SSA to say, well, look, we can't do this. And certainly while you're there, don't put any broken glass and things like that either with the SSA. So we're going to wrap up now. Just going to let you know that on Monday, all of you who are waiting for either a house from the NHC, house repairs from the NHC, the Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, the Honorable Dwight Sutherland, will be on the show. So please join us, get your questions in early, because housing is a pretty big ministry and everybody wants a piece of the rock, whether it be privately owned or through the government. Everybody wants a piece of the rock. And we also have our good friend, attorney at law, Mark Ford. He's answering your questions. A good segment going hand in hand. Land, the legalities, housing, and everything else to go along with it. So again, the Honorable Dwight Sutherland, Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, will be on Monday, as well as attorney at law, Mark Ford, will be on Monday. And we will be promoting shortly those trees. I believe we're going to be doing it all this week. So remember, you get to get some trees free of charge when you answer some questions on climate crisis or climate change during the segment of the 5Cs Green Climate Fund segment that we hold here every other Friday. You can get lime trees, guava trees, coconut trees, all type of trees, and some dwarf trees. My name is Joyanne Haigh. This has been Face It and Fix It. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday. Peter, do you